Poland thought their allies would save them. Britain and France had guaranteed Polish independence, promised to attack Germany within 2 weeks of invasion. Poland held out for 28 days, fighting alone against the most revolutionary military force the world had ever seen. The help never came. This is the story of September 1939, when a new kind of warfare was born in blood and fire, when cavalry charged tanks and won, when doctrine mattered more than courage, and when the world learned that the next war would be nothing like the last. For the next 40 minutes, we're going into the crucible of Poland, not the myth of cavalry charging tanks, but the reality of what happened when 1.5 million German troops, armed with revolutionary tactics, smashed into an army still thinking about trenches and static defense. This is where Blitzkrieg stopped being theory and became the terrifying reality that would reshape warfare forever. We'll see how radio coordination, combined arms doctrine, and operational mobility created something the world had never witnessed. We'll watch as Polish soldiers fought with desperate courage against an enemy they couldn't comprehend. And we'll understand why this invasion didn't just conquer a country. It announced a new era of warfare that would consume the world. Here's the fact nobody tells you about Poland in 1939. Poland had more tanks than Germany, 800 Polish tanks versus 750 German panzers. More armor, better defensive positions, soldiers who'd been preparing for this war since 1933. Poland lost anyway. And when you understand why, when you see what actually matters in modern warfare, you'll understand why France, with an even larger army and the strongest military in Europe, fell even faster. This isn't about hardware. It's about something far more dangerous. To understand how Poland fell in just 28 days, we need to go back to where this revolutionary approach to warfare was born. In the mind of one German officer who refused to accept that war would always mean trenches and stalemate. Heinz Guderian sits in his office in Berlin, February 1938, reading reports from German military exercises. The reports frustrate him. Tanks are being used as infantry support, exactly what he's been fighting against for 15 years. Since the Treaty of Versailles stripped Germany's military power, Guderian has been obsessed with one question. How do you win the next war without repeating the slaughter of the last? His answer is sitting in those reports, being completely misunderstood. Tanks shouldn't support infantry. Tanks should be the spearhead, concentrated into armored divisions that punch through enemy lines at speeds that make encirclement possible. Behind them, motorized infantry. Above them, dive bombers acting as flying artillery, all coordinated by radio, commanders talking to each other in real time, adjusting plans as opportunities appear. This is what Guderian calls Bewegungskrieg, movement warfare. The press will later call it Blitzkrieg, lightning war. The problem is that most German generals don't believe him. They're cavalry officers who grew up in the trenches. They've seen millions die trying to break through fortified lines. They don't trust this mechanized theory from a man who's never commanded troops in battle. But Guderian has two powerful allies. General von Manstein sees the potential. And Adolf Hitler, obsessed with avoiding another long war, loves anything that promises quick victory. By summer 1939, Guderian has his panzer divisions, 3 of them concentrated into armored spearheads that can move 50 kilometers in a day. Unthinkable speed for armies still thinking in terms of trench warfare's meter-by-meter advances. Each division has its own reconnaissance units, its own artillery, its own engineers. Self-contained forces that can operate independently, communicating by radio, exploiting breakthroughs before the enemy can react. Now Hitler gives him Poland. Fall Weiß, case white. The plan is elegant and brutal. 5 German armies totaling 1.5 million men will invade from 3 directions: north from East Prussia, west from Germany, and south from newly annexed Czechoslovakia. The goal isn't to push Poland back, it's to encircle the entire Polish army west of the Vistula River before they can retreat to defensible positions. Classic double envelopment, but executed at speeds the world has never seen. The target date is September 1st, 1939. Guderian's 20th Corps will lead the northern thrust. His orders are specific: break through Polish border defenses, race for Warsaw, don't stop for resistance that can be bypassed. Speed is everything. The entire theory of Blitzkrieg depends on moving faster than the enemy can think. 300 kilometers to the south, General Heinz von Reichenau commands the German 10th Army. This is the main effort. 7 divisions, including 2 panzer divisions, aimed straight at the heart of Poland through the Wielun corridor. Von Reichenau is more traditional than Guderian, skeptical of tanks as a decisive weapon. But his orders are clear: punch through, encircle, annihilate. Between these two thrusts, Poland's destiny is being shaped by geography and politics. The Polish corridor, the strip of land that gives Poland access to the Baltic Sea, separates East Prussia from the rest of Germany. It's also militarily indefensible, a salient that German forces can attack from 3 sides simultaneously. Polish military planners know this. They've been screaming about it for years. Marshal Edward Śmigły-Rydz, Poland's commander-in-chief, faces an impossible dilemma. His army of 950,000 men is spread along 1,750 kilometers of border, trying to defend everything. Military logic says pull back to the Vistula River, establish a defensive line, trade space for time. But political logic says defend the industrial heartland in western Poland at all costs. The government won't accept losing a third of the country without a fight. Britain and France have promised to attack Germany within 2 weeks. All Poland needs to do is hold. So Śmigły-Rydz deploys forward, trying to defend the indefensible. His forces are scattered, lacking the concentration needed to stop a determined thrust. Worse, they're organized for a different kind of war. The Polish army has 30 infantry divisions trained for positional warfare. They have excellent soldiers, brave and well-led. They have those 800 tanks, more than Germany fields. But those tanks are scattered in infantry support companies, not concentrated in armored divisions. Poland's military doctrine assumes the next war will look like the last one: static defense, counterattacks, a war of attrition where industrial capacity matters more than operational mobility. But here's what shatters everything you think you know about this invasion. Poland isn't planning to win alone. Every Polish contingency plan assumes British and French intervention within 2 weeks. French military leaders have promised a major offensive if Germany attacks. The Polish defensive plan isn't about defeating Germany. It's about surviving long enough for their allies to attack from the west and force Germany into a 2-front war. Poland has 800 tanks, prepared defensive positions, and motivated soldiers. What they're missing is time, and time is exactly what Blitzkrieg is designed to steal. It's August 31st, 1939. At the border town of Mokra, Major Zygmunt Piasecki commands the Wolinska Cavalry Brigade. His scouts report German armor massing across the border. Piasecki knows what's coming. He's positioned his brigade in a defensive line anchored on the village, with anti-tank guns hidden in the tree line and artillery zeroed in on likely approach routes. His men have spent 3 days digging in. Piasecki's cavalry isn't the romantic image people imagine when they picture Polish lancers. The Wolinska Brigade has been modernized. They have anti-tank rifles, 75 mm artillery pieces, and machine gun companies. They ride horses for mobility, not for charging machine guns. Piasecki's men are professional soldiers who understand what tanks can and cannot do. They're not planning to charge them. They're planning to kill them. At 4:45 a.m. on September 1st, 1939, German artillery opens fire across the entire border. 1 hour later, before Poland can fully mobilize its reserves, German infantry and armor cross the frontier at dozens of points simultaneously. The invasion has begun. Within minutes, Luftwaffe bombers are hitting Polish airfields, communication centers, and railroad junctions. The goal is paralysis. Destroy Poland's ability to coordinate a response before they realize they're being invaded. At Mokra, the German 4th Panzer Division hits Piaseki's defenses at 7 a.m. They expect to brush aside cavalry and race for the interior. Instead, they run into prepared positions with interlocking fields of fire. Polish anti-tank guns start picking off German tanks at 800 meters. Polish artillery, positioned in depth and pre-registered, starts dropping shells on German infantry trying to maneuver. German radio operators report fierce resistance. The advance stalls. This is the moment that reveals Blitzkrieg's vulnerability. When German armor runs into prepared defenses with anti-tank weapons and artillery support, they die just like any other soldiers. Speed and surprise are their weapons. Take those away, and tanks are just expensive targets. For 8 hours, Piaseki's cavalry brigade holds off an entire panzer division. They destroy 50 German tanks. They inflict over 500 casualties. They prove that Polish soldiers, properly positioned and equipped, can fight. But tactical success doesn't change operational reality. By noon, German forces have bypassed Mokra to the north and south. The cavalry brigade is in danger of encirclement. At 3 p.m., Piasecki receives orders to withdraw. His men have won a battle. It means nothing. The German tide flows around them. This is Blitzkrieg's genius. It's not about fighting better. It's about not fighting at all when fighting doesn't matter. German doctrine emphasizes bypassing resistance and driving for operational objectives. Strong points that would have been siege targets in World War I are simply ignored, left for follow-on forces to mop up. The panzers race past them. They're hunting bigger prey, communication centers, supply depots, command posts. They're trying to paralyze the entire Polish army by cutting its nervous system. September 3rd, 1939. 2 days into the invasion. At German military headquarters in Berlin, staff officers are updating situation maps. The news is better than anyone dared hope. Guderian's 12. Corps has advanced 80 kilometers in 2 days. They've punched through Polish border defenses and are racing for the Vistula River. Von Reichenau's 10th Army in the south has advanced even faster, nearly 100 kilometers, brushing aside Polish counterattacks. The Polish army is fracturing. Individual units fight hard, but they can't coordinate. German Stukas have destroyed most Polish communication infrastructure. Railroad junctions are rubble. Telephone lines are cut. Polish commanders are sending orders by motorcycle courier, taking hours for messages that should take minutes. By the time orders arrive, the tactical situation has completely changed. Above the battlefield, Luftwaffe bombers own the sky. Poland has 400 fighters, but most are destroyed on the ground in the first 2 days. The few that get airborne can't stop the waves of German aircraft. Stukas, Junkers, U-87 dive bombers with screaming sirens attack Polish troop concentrations, supply columns, and retreating forces. They're not particularly accurate, and their bombs aren't large, but they don't need to be. They're psychological weapons, spreading terror and disruption. In Warsaw, Marshal Śmigły-Rydz realizes his forward defense has failed. German panzers are already halfway to Warsaw. His scattered armies can't concentrate fast enough to stop them. He issues new orders: withdraw to the Vistula River, establish a defensive line, hold until British and French forces attack Germany from the west. It's a sound plan. It's also impossible. Half his armies are already cut off from retreat routes. German mobile forces are interdicting roads faster than Polish troops can move. At the Polish town of Bzura, General Tadeusz Kutrzeba commands the Poznan army, 170,000 men, Poland's strategic reserve. Kutrzeba can see what's happening. The German 8th Army under General Johannes Blaskowitz is driving east between Kutrzeba's position and Warsaw. This creates an opportunity. If Kutrzeba attacks south, he can hit Blaskowitz's flank and potentially cut German supply lines. It's risky. It means abandoning his defensive positions. But defensive positions mean nothing if Warsaw falls. What happens next will determine whether Poland survives the month. Kutrzeba is about to launch the largest Polish counteroffensive of the war. For 72 hours, he'll have the Germans reeling. High command in Berlin will panic. Von Reichenau will request reinforcements. If Kutrzeba breaks through, if he cuts the German supply lines and forces them to pull back, Poland might survive long enough for British and French intervention. This is Poland's last chance. Remember this moment. On September 9th, Kutrzeba attacks. The Battle of Bzura begins with a Polish advantage. Surprise. German intelligence has lost track of the Poznan army. When Polish infantry and armor hit the German 8th Army's flank, they achieve local numerical superiority. For 3 days, the battle hangs in the balance. Polish troops capture German supply depots. They push back German infantry units. Radio messages fly back to Berlin. The southern offensive is stalling. This is exactly the kind of development Blitzkrieg doctrine fears. A conventional battle where the enemy has time to mass forces. Lieutenant Stefan Kowalski crouches in a ditch outside the village of Lecajka, September 12, 1939. His company, what's left of it, has been fighting for 3 days. They pushed 15 kilometers into German lines. They captured ammunition. They saw Germans retreating. For 3 days, Kowalski let himself believe they might actually win this battle. Now he watches German tanks appear on both flanks. Not the lone panzers they've been fighting. Entire columns. Dozens of them, moving fast, kicking up dust clouds that obscure the horizon. Kowalski's captain is screaming into a field radio that doesn't work anymore. The battalion commander is dead. The regiment is scattered across 20 kilometers of countryside. Nobody knows where the division headquarters is. Kowalski has 42 men left from a company that started with 180. They have ammunition for maybe 2 more firefights. No food since yesterday. The tanks are getting closer. He can hear their engines now, a grinding mechanical roar that drowns out everything else. One of his men, Corporal Nowak, barely 19 years old, asks if they should retreat. Kowalski looks at the map. German tanks to the north, German tanks to the south, German infantry pushing from the west. They advanced too far. The counteroffensive drove deep into German lines, and now German mobile forces have raced around them, exactly like they did to every other Polish unit. The entire Poznan army is in a pocket 60 kilometers wide, 170,000 men. Poland's last hope. Trapped. He tells Nowak they're going to try to break out after dark. He doesn't mention that he's seen what happens to units that try to break through German encirclements. He doesn't mention that Luftwaffe bombers have been methodically destroying every Polish concentration they can find. He doesn't mention that even if they break out, there's nowhere left to retreat to. Warsaw is probably already under siege. The eastern armies are cut off. The government might have already fled. Nowak nods. The kid still thinks they're going to make it. Kowalski lets him believe it. When the sun sets, they'll move. Until then, they wait in the ditch and watch German armor tighten the noose. This is what Blitzkrieg does to brave men with good equipment and sound tactics. It doesn't defeat them in battle. It traps them before battle matters. Kowalski's company won every firefight they were in during the counteroffensive. They're about to be annihilated anyway, because operational mobility beats tactical skill. The Poznan army is dying, not because Polish soldiers can't fight, but because German forces can move faster than Polish commanders can think. German response to Bzura demonstrates why doctrine matters more than hardware. Von Reichenau doesn't try to defeat the Polish counteroffensive with frontal attacks. Instead, he redirects his panzer divisions north and south of the battle. While Polish forces drive into Blaskowitz's positions, German armor races to encircle them. Luftwaffe bombers, freed from other targets now that Polish airfields are destroyed, concentrate on the Bzura battlefield. On September 12th, the German Weiss closes. The Poznan army is trapped in a pocket 60 kilometers wide. Kuturzeba tries to break out. His troops fight with suicidal courage, attacking German positions in desperate attempts to punch through the encirclement. Some units succeed in breaking through German lines, most don't. German artillery and air power methodically destroy the trapped Polish forces. By September 18th, the Poznan army ceases to exist as an organized fighting force. 170,000 Polish soldiers are dead or captured. It's the decisive battle of the campaign, and most histories barely mention it. The psychological impact on German military leadership is profound. They've just executed a double envelopment at operational scale, exactly as Guderian and Manstein theorized. An entire army destroyed not by superior firepower, but by superior mobility and coordination. The lesson is clear. The side that can concentrate faster wins, regardless of overall force ratios. In Warsaw, the news from Bzura is catastrophic. Poland's last mobile reserve is gone. German forces are already in Warsaw's suburbs. The government prepares to evacuate. September 17th, 1939. Polish commanders are planning the defense of Warsaw. Ammunition is running low, but still adequate. Food supplies will last another week. Civilian morale is holding. British and French forces should be attacking Germany by now. It's been 16 days since the invasion began. Any day now, the pressure from the West will force Germany to pull back forces from Poland. Any day now. Then the reports start coming in from the eastern border. Soviet troops crossing into Poland. Not patrols, not reconnaissance. 800,000 Soviet soldiers invading across a 1,000 kilometer front. Stalin is claiming he's protecting Ukrainian and Belarusian populations in eastern Poland. He's actually seizing territory promised to him in the secret protocol of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact that Poland never knew existed. For Polish soldiers who've been fighting for 17 days, who've watched their friends die, who've held out believing their allies would come, this is the moment everything becomes hopeless. Germany attacking from 3 directions was survivable if France and Britain intervened. Germany and the Soviet Union attacking simultaneously while the Western Allies do nothing means Poland is finished. The Polish government evacuates to Romania that same day. They don't announce it, they just leave. Polish units in the field wake up on September 18th to discover their government is gone and they're fighting the 2 largest armies in Europe alone. Drop a comment right now. If you were a Polish commander on September 17th, knowing your government has fled, that the Soviets have invaded from the east, and that your allies aren't coming, do you keep fighting, knowing every hour means more deaths for nothing, or do you order your men to surrender and live with that choice forever? Polish soldiers keep fighting. Individual units, cut off and surrounded, hold out for days or weeks. At the Hel Peninsula, Polish coastal defenders don't surrender until October 2nd. At the fortress of Modlin, north of Warsaw, 8,000 Polish troops hold out until September 29th, tying down an entire German corps. These aren't strategic victories. They're demonstrations of courage by men who know they're doomed, but keep fighting anyway. On September 27th, Warsaw surrenders after a brutal siege. The city has been bombed repeatedly. Water supplies are cut. Food is running out. German artillery pounds civilian areas. The military situation is hopeless. Polish casualties in the siege exceed 25,000. German casualties are less than 2,000. The disparity reveals what Blitzkrieg really is, a method for achieving decisive results with minimal casualties for the attacker by paralyzing the defender's ability to coordinate resistance. By October 6th, the last organized Polish resistance ends. 66,000 Polish soldiers have been killed, 134,000 wounded, 694,000 taken prisoner by Germany, another 200,000 captured by the Soviets. The Polish state ceases to exist. Germany and the Soviet Union divide the country between them according to their secret pact. It's taken just 36 days to completely destroy a nation of 35 million people. The world watches Poland's destruction with horror and fascination. Military planners from London to Moscow to Washington start rewriting their doctrine manuals. Everything they thought they knew about modern warfare is suddenly obsolete. Poland didn't fall because Polish soldiers were cowards. They proved they could fight. Poland fell because they were fighting a different kind of war than the one they prepared for. French and British military analysts identify several key factors that decided Poland's fate. German operational mobility, the ability to move forces faster than Poland could react, made encirclement possible at scales previously unimaginable. Combined arms coordination turned tanks, infantry, artillery, and air power into a single weapon system instead of separate capabilities. Radio communication allowed German commanders to adjust plans in real time, while Polish forces still relied on motorcycle couriers. These aren't minor advantages. They're the difference between winning and losing before battles are even fought. The French conclude that Blitzkrieg works against poorly organized armies on flat terrain. They convince themselves this could never happen to them. They're wrong. In 9 months, France will fall faster than Poland. The British Expeditionary Force will end up trapped on a beach at Dunkirk, waiting to be evacuated while German panzers close in. You need to understand why. In Berlin, German military leadership draws different lessons. Blitzkrieg's power is undeniable when surprise and speed are achieved. But at Mokra and other prepared defensive positions, Polish forces stopped German armor cold. The solution isn't better tanks, it's better reconnaissance and more aggressive bypassing of strong points. Don't fight battles you don't need to win. Fight the battles that paralyze the enemy's entire system. Guderian writes a report analyzing the campaign. His conclusions are prophetic. Modern armies are complex systems requiring coordination. Destroy the coordination, and the system collapses regardless of individual unit quality. Tanks don't win by killing enemy tanks. They win by racing into the enemy's rear area and destroying command posts, supply depots, and communication centers faster than the enemy can reorganize. The goal isn't attrition, it's paralysis. This insight will reshape warfare for the next 6 years. Every major German victory until 1943, France, Yugoslavia, the opening phases in Russia, will follow this pattern. Breakthrough, encirclement, paralysis, collapse. The defeats will come when Germans face opponents who understand this doctrine and develop counters to it, or when operational conditions prevent the speed and coordination that Blitzkrieg requires. But the human cost of Poland's defeat extends far beyond military statistics. German occupation policy in Poland is brutal from the beginning. The Nazi regime views Slavic peoples as racially inferior. Polish intellectuals, professionals, and political leaders are systematically murdered in mass executions designed to destroy Poland's capability for organized resistance. By the end of 1939, over 50,000 Polish civilians have been killed. This is just the beginning. Over the next 6 years, 6 million Polish citizens will die, half of them Jewish, killed in the Holocaust's death camps that will be built on Polish soil. The Soviet occupation of eastern Poland is equally brutal. NKVD secret police arrest anyone considered potentially hostile to Soviet rule. In April 1940, the NKVD murders 22,000 Polish officers and intellectuals in what becomes known as the Katyn massacre. The goal is the same as Germany's: destroy Poland's educated class so the remaining population can't organize resistance. Yet, resistance does organize. By early 1940, Polish underground organizations are forming. The Home Army will eventually become the largest resistance movement in occupied Europe. Polish pilots who escaped to Britain form squadrons in the RAF, fighting throughout the war. Polish mathematicians who cracked German Enigma codes before the war share their knowledge with British intelligence, laying the groundwork for the ultra-decryption program. Poland's military defeat doesn't end Polish resistance. Here's what the survivors couldn't know in October 1939. They're watching the birth of the military doctrine that will dominate warfare for the next century. From the Six-Day War to the Gulf War to Ukraine in 2022, the fundamental principles proven in Poland remain relevant. The side that can move faster, communicate better, and disrupt the enemy's decision-making process has an overwhelming advantage. Modern militaries still study Fall Weiss not because they want to invade Poland, but because it demonstrated operational principles that transcend technology. Doctrine matters more than hardware. Speed and coordination matter more than size. Paralyzing the enemy's system is more effective than trying to destroy every unit. Poland's tragedy was preparing for the wrong war. Their courage, their equipment, even their tactical skill were all irrelevant once German forces achieved operational-level breakthrough. No amount of bravery matters when the enemy is destroying your command structure, cutting your supply lines, and encircling your forces faster than you can react. But the lesson extends beyond military doctrine. Poland's agony revealed that alliances mean nothing when allies won't fight. Britain and France's failure to attack Germany during the invasion told every small nation in Europe that they were alone. Belgium, Netherlands, Denmark, Norway. They all saw what happened when a great power guaranteed your security but didn't have the will to enforce it. And that's the final lesson from Poland's agony: how quickly a modern state can be erased. In just over a month, Poland ceases to exist. This isn't ancient history's slow-motion conquests. This is industrial-age warfare where entire nations can be destroyed in weeks. The shock waves ripple through every capital in Europe. Before Poland, war was still something that happened slowly enough for societies to adapt. After Poland, everyone understands that modern warfare happens at speeds that make those luxuries impossible. This brings us to an inflection point in history. France will learn this lesson in May 1940 when German panzers do to them exactly what they did to Poland, except faster and with even more devastating results. Britain will survive only because 21 miles of English Channel prevent German armor from reaching London. Russia will nearly fall when Operation Barbarossa applies these same principles on an even larger scale. Don't forget to click subscribe and hit notifications, because this series only gets more intense as we move into 1940, and the doctrine perfected in Poland is unleashed on Western Europe. The revolution that began in Guderian's office and was proven in Poland's agony is about to reach its peak. The question isn't whether Blitzkrieg works anymore. The question is whether anyone can stop it.